What's happening? Another episode of the Wildcast podcast coming your way on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Tucson.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. The video version is available on Tucson.com. The audio version of this episode is available wherever you get your podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and comment the Wildcast podcast wherever you get your podcasts. I almost had a Michael Keaton moment and the other guys when he's like at his other job. I almost said subscribe to the Spears and Ali podcast. I'm just like trained to say that, when Michael Keaton as the police chief is working at Bed Bath & Beyond, that's my other job. So, but do subscribe to the Spears and Ali podcast.
You wear multiple hats, Justin, or multiple headsets.
Yep.
If you will.
Yeah.
You're a man of many jobs and many talents.
Yep. Thank you.
We're glad to have you.
Thank you.
What's that shirt there? Is that a Laker shirt?
It is. It's officially playoff season. And, I don't know how much longer the Lakers have left because they're going up against the defending champs and the Denver Nuggets. And I'm not feeling too confident about it. Now, I hope that they slay the dragon, but we'll see. If there's anybody that can do it, it's LeBron James, right? But we'll see how these NBA playoffs go. A lot of Arizona Wildcats in the NBA playoffs. You got the guys that were playing for the Indiana Pacers and Ben Mathurin and TJ McConnell. And then you also have the Denver Nuggets in the first round with Zeke Naji and Aaron Gordon. So a lot of Wildcats all over the place. But
NBA champion Aaron Gordon.
Yes, sir. Can't forget about that. But Lev, while NBA season is now officially in the postseason, Arizona football is in full swing in the spring practice schedule. And not only is it spring football, Lev, but it's also transfer portal season too. Earlier this week, the transfer portal officially opened up, and the new element, or as I like to call the new beast that is the transfer portal in college football, has opened up. And, I was wondering, how the early stages would look considering the timing of it, because it's right in the middle of the spring practice schedule. So Tuesday was the first practice. And, oh, by the way, we'll get to the mailbags. I know you guys have a bunch of questions that you want to get answered. So we'll have an Arizona football Twitter mailbag later on in the episode. But, from Tuesday, pretty much up until the spring game, Lev, every single practice that we go out to, it's going to be, okay, let's take attendance. Let's see who's here and who's not. And the first day, the Tuesday practice, the first practice after the portal opened, I'm sitting there looking at the roster, and I'm just counting people and trying to see who's there and who's not. And I waited multiple periods because I'm like, hey, maybe guys are inside the Davis Center. We don't have a complete look at everything that's going on. So maybe they're rehabbing, or maybe they're just injured off to the side. I waited several periods to make sure to like who's here and who's not. And I counted multiple players. One of them is Takario Bobo Davis. Another one is receiver AJ Jones, and offensive lineman Raymond Polito and Matthew Lotto. All four interesting prospects because Takario is a starting cornerback. And when you look at his skill set, what he brings as a player, his production last year, I mean, any school in the country will go after Takario Davis. And I'm talking like the who's who of college football. And then you add in the other guys, Matthew Lotto from Glendale Apollo up in Phoenix. His two other teammates who signed with Arizona in 2024 followed Jed and company to Washington. And then you also look at Raymond Polito, who came to Arizona because of Brennan Carroll, has a great relationship with that staff. And then AJ Jones is a wide receiver who's very talented. We've seen his skill set, but he's also been a guy that's just been kind of playing behind T-Mac for the last few years. So maybe he's looking for an expanded role somewhere else. I waited for those guys, and they were not there until the second half of practice. They all showed up wearing their jerseys, also wearing shorts. And you wondered, okay, is this injury related? It could be. But then you also have a guy like a DJ Warnell, who's been a defensive back for the last couple of years for Arizona. And according to the U of A, he's entering the transfer portal, but also still practicing with Arizona to weigh his options. So, Lev, this is all just a weird situation. I don't know who's injured, who's not. I don't know who's in the portal and who is not. It's just very, very bizarre to follow.
Yeah, I was following the entire thing on social media and through our group texts as I was not out there on Tuesday. And it felt like, even from afar, there was just a certain level of tension that is pretty uncommon for a spring football practice.
Yeah.
Um, like you said, who's staying, who's going, why aren't these guys here? Even on some pretty prominent, national college football podcasts like The Audible with Bruce Feldman and Stuart Mandel, they were talking about the Takario Davis situation today. They had Max Olson on as their guest from The Athletic, and Max is kind of the portal guru, and he said it was virtually unprecedented. If someone puts their name in the portal, they don't leave, they continue to practice with the same school. They haven't pulled their name out of the portal either.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know. It's very odd. I remember when we got to talk to Cario toward the start of spring. It might have been after the first spring practice,
It was
actually.
day one,
Right, day one.
right next to head ball coach.
Yeah, it sat next to Brent Brennan. He was very, what I would say, he was non-committal. It was kind of, his message was, I'm going to give this new staff a shot and see what they're all about, and then we'll see where it goes from there. So I guess he's still in that phase at this point, to the best of our knowledge. I believe, Brent Brennan has been talking after most Thursday practices, so some of you guys will get a chance to, ask him some of those pointed questions about, his roster.
Yeah.
But when you look at that group of guys that you mentioned, like, the two really important players, at least two. Takario Davis, potential, like, I think all Big 12 first team cornerback. If he builds on last season, maybe even All American, maybe a 3 and done player who goes into the NFL. And then Raymond Polito, a little bit longer term project, but super talented, can play multiple positions, might be the most logical successor to Jordan Morgan at left tackle,
Yep.
Guy with NFL ability. So, we don't know if those guys are going to leave. They're still here for now. To the best of our knowledge, Raymond Polito's just been a little banged up
Yeah.
throughout spring with injuries, but those would be big losses if those guys were to go elsewhere. And it would really sting, I think, for U of A fans if they ended up going to Washington.
Takario and Raymond are two important positions, like you said, Lev, because the Wildcats, they don't have Ephesians Prysock coming back. So if Takario does in fact leave, Arizona's going to have to replace both cornerback spots and also left tackle. And are those positions so important that without Takario and Raymond, is Arizona considered a top 20 team still at this point?
I mean, they went from, okay, when they had everybody coming back, they were probably consensus top 12.
Yeah.
When they lost the guys that they have officially lost, they kind of, I think, fell into that maybe 18 to 20 range. You lose a couple more guys, you're probably bottom of the top 25 at best. The margin for error shrinks
Yeah.
a lot. When I look at those two and who would be harder to replace, even though Takario is further along in his progress as a player, kind of a year ahead of Polito in his career, I actually think that Polito would be harder to replace.
Yeah.
Offensive linemen are so hard to find. Like, if you're a quality offensive lineman and you go in the portal, like, everyone in the country wants you. Not that, there are guys like Takario Davis just, like, readily available, but they do have the option of moving Traden Stukes back out to corner. And they have guys behind Traden Stukes who conceivably could play safety or nickel. Genesis Smith has gotten looks there. They have Gavin Hunter, who's another promising young player. They just signed a junior college player, Marquise Brown.
Yep.
Is his name, who seems like he's got some good buzz coming in here. So even though I think, like, today, Takario Davis is a better football player than Raymond Polito, much more likely to be an all-conference type of player in 2024, I think Polito would be harder to replace.
Yeah.
That would be a big blow. I mean, you lose Jordan Morgan, you have this guy that you're kind of grooming to succeed him, and then you lose that guy as well. that would be rough. And of course, hey, this is just speculation still at this
Yeah.
point. We don't know what's going to happen. But it's a non-zero chance that something is going to happen.
Yeah. And it's very sad in a lot of ways because, there's a lot of great stories going on this spring. And, we won't shy away from telling some of those stories, but this whole element that has been added to college football has kind of, I don't know, has been kind of a dark cloud. Now, I'm all for player empowerment and players doing whatever's best for them, right? Because coaches do it all the time. They leave, they're in one place for a couple of years and then they dip out. Players should have that opportunity to have the ability to go wherever they want to and make things not as complicated. But with this being at the same time as spring ball, it's the early months of 2024 and it's just there's so much craziness going on in college football even at this point of the year.
So I make a lot of references to other podcasts because I listen to a lot of podcasts when I'm just driving around or doing tasks around the house. And I was listening to the Until Saturday podcast featuring Arizona alum Ari Wasserman, and he was on with Chris Vanini. They're both with the Athletic, and they made the point that the portal is actually a good thing for fans because it creates this kind of year-round engagement with the sport, kind of similar to what the NFL has. I don't agree with that take. I think that it causes more angst than it does excitement, especially when you're in the position that Arizona's in, where it seems like they're kind of vulnerable to be poached, right?
Yeah.
It's a funny thing, the portal. Like when you get someone, it's awesome, it's super exciting. Welcome to the family, that kind of thing. When you lose somebody, it feels sort of devastating a little bit, especially when it's someone that you've invested time in, that you've gotten to know, that's had success with your program. So I don't know. I think that from a fan perspective only, I think the the cons outweigh the pros
Yeah.
when it comes to the portal. And so I try not to like make
Oh,
too big of a
Lev,
deal. Yeah.
trust me. No, I experienced that yesterday or
Okay.
during Tuesday's practice when I was tweeting out the updates. And people are like, "Oh, here we go. Oh man!"
Yeah.
It was like the sky is falling for Arizona football fans. And then as I tweeted more updates of these guys slowly
And it was with
showing out of
relief,
practice,
right?
it was like,
Yeah.
"Oh my god!" It was the Denzel Washington gif
Yeah.
of him being relieved. So yeah,
People they become invested in the players, the program, right? Like you develop this attachment to these guys. And that's one of the sort of negative offshoots of not just the transfer portal, but now the fact that you can transfer as many times as you want. Like you lose, the relationship isn't as strong.
yeah.
Like I'm working on a piece on Arizona men's tennis right now. It's going to be coming out this weekend.
Shout out to them.
And according to my research, they've only had 3 players transfer to other like 4-year schools to play during Clancy Shields' entire tenure since he got here in 2016. So it's been 8 seasons with 8 to 12 players on the team at a time, 3 guys that entire time. So there's been a lot of guys who've gone 4 years, even 5 years, seen it all the way through. Like the fans develop an attachment to them. They develop this sort of, the program means a lot to them. Like it has a huge impact on their lives. And these guys who have this kind of like nomadic experience, bouncing from one school to another, our old buddy Majon Wright, going back in the portal, it seems like he's going to be going on to like school number 7, I believe. Like, I mean, look, I get it. Hey, you guys are searching for an opportunity to play. They're searching for the best financial situation. But there's also something to be said for, hey, like this is the place for me. I picked this school coming out of high school for a reason. Let's see it through. Like
Yeah.
let's be an Arizona Wildcat or even an ASU Sun Devil if that's your cup of tea.
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes like your part of your legacy, part of your identity. And I think we're losing that to a degree.
Now transitioning over to our latest mailbag, Lev, we have some a lot of Arizona football related questions.
Okay.
This one comes in from Kyle Morris, still sticking with the transfer portal. He asked, how much did Bill Norton get from Texas? That seems to be the assumption that Bill Norton is leaving Arizona for Texas. I'm not, totally sold 100% that it was NIL related. And you know what? It could be. And I put myself in Bill Norton's shoes. Does Bill Norton, sit there and think I'm going to have a great NFL career? Maybe Bill Norton's like, I'm probably not going to stick in the NFL for a long time. So where can I get the most NIL money? Let me maximize this opportunity or as much as possible. And that's why, for Arizona fans, they have to understand why Jonah Coleman went to Washington, or at least I put myself in a running back's perspective. One, Scotty Graham is Jonah Coleman's guy. Number two, think about the shelf life for running backs in the NFL and how much money they're making. A guy like Jonah Coleman making NIL endorsement money, that can go a long way for his position group. So maybe Bill Norton just kind of looked at it like, you know what, I can get a bunch of NIL money playing at Texas, even if I'm not really a starter, and I'm gonna reunite with my good buddy Johnny Nansen. So there's a familiarity factor there as well. So I don't know
Yeah.
what went into Bill Norton's decision, but I'm sure, if you got the full story, I think a lot of Arizona fans would probably understand. Now it sucks for U of A fans, but I get where Bill Norton's coming from.
Do you think if Johnny Nansen had stayed at Arizona, that Bill Norton would have also stayed at Arizona? I would say most likely yes.
Probably, yeah.
Most likely yes. So a lot of times in these situations, it's just you're following your coach. Like
Yeah.
if I'm Bill Norton, I'm like, I had the best season of my career with Johnny Nansen as the coach of the defense, right? He put me in a position to succeed. He knows me. He's going to treat me well. And why not, why not run it back
And
with
he knows
him?
how to use me.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
I've thrived under his system, and like after talking with Joe Ciamalo, the defensive line coach,
Different.
you were
It's
there.
different. Yeah, it's
It's
different.
it's like, hey
It's
Bill,
it's
you gotta go. You
yeah,
gotta
it's
go get the
one gap.
quarterback.
Yeah, he might have felt like schematically that it wasn't the right fit for him. I don't know what the dollar amount is that he's going to get. I'm sure if it's Texas, it's going to be a decent chunk of change. Um, that's a whole different topic. Like what's reported as far as what these guys are getting and what they're actually receiving at the end of the day. There's not a lot of concrete information out there about that, and it's not always about the money either. Like we said, it could be just wanting to play for the coach that you had last year, wanting to be in a different scheme, something of that nature.
Yeah.
It's a little bit surprising to me that it would happen with Bill because he seemed like he was so happy here. But we also are seeing a lot of multi-time transfers in this world now, where they've made it easy to do that.
Yep.
Like there's no limit anymore on how many times you can transfer and play immediately somewhere else.
This one comes in from AZ Cat John, a longtime supporter and listener of the Wildcast, and he asks, "Why is it that we know the former staff is calling our players who are not in the portal (parentheses) a clear violation, and we know our coaches / admin knows, but no one asks if they are being reported for tampering or a rules violation?" Um, this is a tough one to answer, Lev, because I have asked around. I have been, digging into it. And, while people are, whispering things on Twitter about Jedfish and tampering and all of that, I haven't been able to completely confirm that. And I don't know what to think about, Jedfish trying to lure players from Arizona to Washington. Um, that could be the case, but from what I've heard, it's nothing is confirmed right now. And I think it'd be reckless to say that Jedfish and his staff are doing that right now.
Yeah, I think part of the reason that people are reluctant to come out and say anything publicly, like let's say that, Brent Brennan were to come out and say, "Oh, Washington has been tampering with us," then someone's going to come out and say, "Well, members of Brent Brennan's staff have been reaching out to our players." I
Yeah.
think it's one of those things, honestly, like everybody's doing it to some degree. Some might be a little more brazen about it,
It's like a
a little
gentleman's
more
agreement.
direct about it. Yeah. But like, how did the San Jose State guys end up here?
Yeah.
You know, like telling me there was like zero. I'm not accusing anybody of anything. You're telling me that like there was zero conversation, zero contact
And
before
it's
those guys went in the portal, and then they
and,
magically end up here.
and it's so funny because like whenever we asked the San Jose State position coaches that came over with Brent
Mm-hmm.
to Arizona, like Alonzo Carter, when we asked about Quali, he was like, first of all, Quali didn't follow me here. He went into the portal, then I recruited him here. So like they've been
Alonzo's
like
smart. Yeah.
making sure that, hey, no. These guys went into the portal, then we had these conversations. It's not the other way around.
But
Smart men.
why did they go in the portal? I mean, I guess it's pretty
Yeah.
natural for players to go into the portal when there's a change with their position coach or their head coach or their entire coaching staff, as was the case with San Jose State. But I don't know. I feel like if you start making public accusations about other schools, it opens up a Pandora's box. You become vulnerable. It's like sometimes people don't want to get into lawsuits because there will be depositions and
Yeah.
stuff will come out that they don't necessarily want to become public.
All right. Moving on to this next question coming in from Jonathan Blank. What are some difference makers, or I should say, who are some difference makers that are coming in the summer? Well, right now,
I think both of the transfers who are coming in summer are going to be difference makers, don't you?
running back and defensive lineman.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, the New Mexico running back, he averaged, I think, a little over 6 yards per carry last year for New
Bunch of
Mexico.
touchdowns. Yep.
Scored 18 touchdowns for the Lobos. He was awesome. And Kayvon Darton, the transfer from Syracuse, a little bit undersized height-wise, but can really figure out a way to get in the gaps. He's athletic as well. And from the tape that I've seen regarding Kayvon Darton, he's going to be a very productive defensive lineman. Will he start? Who knows? But that's a good piece to have on your defensive line. And now with Bill Norton leaving, Kayvon Darton, he's going to get some serious run this upcoming year. Because I was looking at it, Lev, with Bill Norton leaving, that's now 9 scholarship players that is leaving Arizona, whether it's just graduating, getting ready for the NFL draft, or entering the portal. That was a big part of their success and a huge part of their turnaround. And so they need defensive linemen, and I think Kayvon Darton will be one of those names that certainly stands out. But I'm excited for Ja'Cory. I think he's fast. He's fun to watch. And you know what? He may not be the only electric running back that Arizona's bringing in, because currently, as we're recording this podcast, the Wildcats are hosting Damian Martinez, the Oregon State transfer, who was an all Pac-12 selection for the last 2 years, rushed for over 2,000 yards in 2 seasons. Now, do they need Damian Martinez? No. Are they in demand for a running back? No. But if that guy's available, I'm sure that Arizona would love to have him.
That surprises me a little bit because he's been linked to Miami so strongly. Like as soon as it happened, everyone's like, "Oh, he's going to Miami."
Yeah.
Mario Cristobal's obviously familiar with him from having coached previously in the Pacific Northwest. Regarding Kayvon Darton coming from Syracuse, I kind of am envisioning him as the Jacob Manu of the defensive line. This undersized guy who probably doesn't get a lot of respect from the guy across from him, who's just going to be an annoyance for opposing offenses.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's going to be like, someone who can play 60, 70 snaps, but you don't want anybody up front to play that many. Remember when the first year with Jed it was the first year. Maybe it was the second year. Which year did they have Hunter Echols? The 22?
Year two. Yeah, 22.
Year 2. Okay. Hunter Echols and Jalen Harris, they played way too many snaps. These guys were like almost never came off the field, and you just don't want that to be the case with your defensive line. As you said, one of the reasons they were so effective on defense last year was they had a legit rotation of like 8 or 9 guys. And it's going to be, the more we go on and the more guys they lose, the harder it's going to be to replicate that.
Yep. All right, moving on. Kind of along those lines, Rob from AZ says, who do you expect to be a breakout player for this upcoming season. That's interesting because do you look at the receivers? Do you look at, anybody on the defense? Lev, I got to say, I think this is going to be a big year for the tight ends. Arizona is using a lot of 12 personnel.
You love you some 12 personnel.
Oh, 12 personnel. It's great. It's great. Smash Mouth using multiple tight ends, like Stanford thrived on that. Oregon State has been known to use that. North Dakota State was like that too in recent, opponents that Arizona has faced. But Kean Burnett and Roberto Miranda, or as we call Das Gronk, the redshirt junior from Germany, who's entering his 5th year with the program. You hear the players and the coaches talk about him and they say, he's a man. Like Berto is a man amongst boys, the way he carries himself, just his overall presence. And over the last, his entire Arizona career, Lev, I forgot about this until I started writing about tight ends, that Roberto Miranda has only recorded 1 catch this year, which was his final home game against Utah. Other than that, whenever he was on the field, he was mostly used. Yep. He was a blocking tight end. So far in camp, I'm not saying that he's the next Antonio Gates because he wears number 85, but I would mark my words, Roberto Miranda will be a very useful pass-catching tight end this year for the Arizona Wildcats. So I look at Roberto as my breakout star.
Yeah, my mind went to the exact same place as yours when the idea of breakout players came up. I was thinking about the tight ends. And if it's not Roberto Miranda, maybe it's going to be Kean Burnett, who's finally seems like going to get a chance to play. He obviously has a history with the starting quarterback of the Arizona Wildcats, Noah Fifita. They were teammates in high school. So it's not like you're just starting from scratch and they have to build chemistry. They already have it. He's a little bit different than Roberto Miranda in that he's more of that, like, he's maybe like 55% wide receiver and 45% tight end. Like he's not that inline blocker type of guy. I think when I think about Tanner McLaughlin, he's a true all-around tight end, someone who can do it all. I'm not sure Kean Burnett is there yet in his progression as a player, but we've seen glimpses already in practice of him making plays downfield.
Yep.
Running post routes and going up and getting the ball. So I think that's definitely a possibility. I think Kevin Green is someone I would keep an eye on as a possible breakout player, maybe playing that slot receiver position. And then, the running backs, I mean, it'll probably be mostly, the guys that they bring in through the portal, Jacory and Quali Conley. But keep an eye on Speedy Luke. Ooh. Speedy Luke's had a really nice spring ball. He looks a little bit bigger than we've seen him. We know how explosive he can be. I loved watching them set up screen passes for him. They'd spend a lot of time working on those screens. I love the idea of that smaller, speedy running back getting behind those big offensive linemen. Hard to see him, hard to find him. Before you know it, boom, he's gone.
Shoot out like a cannon.
Yeah.
All right, now moving on to the following question, and this one comes from Big Game Wildcat. What are your thoughts on Quali Conley at running back? He is very much like Michael Wiley, just kind of a do-it-all running back, a guy who can also catch out of the backfield too. I think between him and Speedy, those are going to be your 2 top receiving running backs out of the group. Jacory is very much a natural running back who's going to make plays, can be effective in the passing game, but he's going to be a rushing running back. Quali Conley has those traits too, but so far has been also great in the passing game. Got a little bit banged up last week, left practice with an ankle injury, and he's been in a walking boot, but he should be a big one for Arizona.
Yeah, and you always like it when somebody knows the scheme, right? No learning curve for him whatsoever. With coming over with Brent Brennan, same running backs coach, and Alonzo Carter, who Alonzo Carter knows him. He knows Alonzo Carter. He knows what the expectations are. So I think that was a really good pickup for a room that lost a lot of production.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, talking about Michael Wiley, who could get drafted next week, talking about DJ Williams, who was really effective when he was put in there. And of course, Jonah Coleman,
Yep.
who, might have the most upside of all of them. So they lost a ton of production in that room. And I think they did a really good job of replacing it.
Old Jack Burton asks, can U of A and any school not in the Big 12 conference stay nationally relevant and competitive against schools in the Big 10 and SEC who will make $50 to $80 million more annually through TV deals? Maybe there's one answer to that, and that's winning. Right now, in the expanded college football playoff, win right now if you're the Big 12.
I mean, look, you're going to have these kind of one-offs, right? Like a TCU that has that magical season. All the breaks go their way. They go 12-1 or 13-0 or whatever, and they get a high seed. And heck, man, if you can get into that top 4, the way things are set up now, you've got to bye the first week. I mean, you're in the quarterfinals.
Yep.
Without, just off of your kind of regular season accomplishments. Like long term, it is hard to make any statements about college football, like what it's going to look like, who's going to be successful. But I think that's more like most, I think, of the champions, the finalists, the way things are set up now are going to come from the Big 10 and the SEC. I mean, that's just where most of the power schools have kind of ended up at the end of, this conference realignment. And it's going to be like, every few years, there's going to be someone, right, who's kind of the darling of the playoff, who surprises some people.
Yep.
But year in, year out, it is going to be hard to compete with those leagues because of the resources that they have. There was a lot of discussion earlier this year about like different playoff models, like having 14 teams and some leagues getting 3 guaranteed spots, some leagues getting 2 guaranteed spots. And I got to say, like when that's kind of like 3-3, 2-2, 1-1-1 concept or whatever it was being discussed, I think I got the math wrong there. By the way, I don't think that adds up to 14, but
or journalism majors.
Maybe there's 3 at large tacked onto that at the end. But anyway, the idea of the Big 12 getting 2 guaranteed spots, gotta say, was not that bad, was not that unappealing.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, most years are 2 teams going to finish that high out of the Big 12 and the ACC. I don't know. Like when all that was being bandied about, I'm like, this sort of goes against like the concept of meritocracy to a degree, but not bad having 2 guaranteed spots.
Mm-hmm. Does NIL also help in that category? I know it's really hard to beat SEC boosters and donors, but
no, it actually does.
If you're on the Big 12, like, hey, we're not going to bring in all this money through media deals, but man, our NIL collective is the best of the best.
Like just as throwing this out as an example, but SMU, right? Moving up from
who did NIL
group
before
of 5,
NIL.
Group of 5. Yeah, they sure did. They sure did. Before it was legal, they moved up from group of 5 to Power 5. And all I ever hear about SMU is they've got tons of money, like tons of money to throw around. Like there's no reason that a school like that can't be competitive in the NIL space, or even better than a lot of, established quote unquote Power 5 or Power 4 teams. There's been a little bit more parity in college football since NIL came to prominence. I mean, look at the national title game last year. A Pac-12 team finally made it. Michigan finally broke through. I mean, it's been sort of like teams from the Southeast, like year in, year out. It was like Alabama, Georgia, and Clemson. And none of those teams made it to the last game this last year. So I think that NIL has actually had a positive effect on college football in that way. It has not separated the haves and have-nots as much, to me, as our follower suggested, the media deals.
Yeah.
That's really where, like when one league is getting 100 million or whatever, and another is getting 40 million, I'm just throwing those numbers out. that can really have a big impact.
I wonder if Eric Dickerson is contributing to SMU NIL. Wouldn't that be a full circle moment? All
I
right.
feel like all these guys, like Reggie Bush, like give the man his Heisman back. I mean, because whatever happened, whatever he did is now it's now legal.
Yeah.
Right. It's not even like people just yawn and move on. Oh, like he got money from marketing guys. Like, yeah, that's how it works.
When I saw the Heisman put out a post for OJ passing away, I was like, "Jeez, Louise, give Reggie his damn Heisman back."
Yeah, I know.
Give it
really
back.
Strange.
All right, before we get out of here, this is a uniform question.
Yeah.
Andy Blaho, can you ask Coach Brennan if Arizona's getting the blue stripe back on the white uniforms, or if there are new uniforms to get excited about? You know, the important stuff. I think we've had this conversation in the past. I like the white uniforms with the 2 red stripes. It reminds me of the late 90s, 2000s Arizona basketball uniform at the bottom of the shorts. The current team wears it from time to time. So I like having that unique look. There are some schools around the country that have kind of made the stripes like a part of their uniform or a part of their look. Your alma mater, Northwestern, is one of those teams that loves them some stripes. So I like the red, white, red stripes on the shoulder pads. I know people are clamoring for the blue stripe, but I like the look.
It wasn't as bad as I thought it would be because I believe they had blue numbers on the shoulders.
Oh yeah.
Right. So it wasn't just red up there. There was a little bit of blue. I mean, I agree with our guy here that I would rather it be one red and one blue. I think that the pants, isn't it one red and one blue? The stripe along the side.
Yeah. Yeah, the white pants.
So why would you make it different? I guess would be my question. You know, like why not have your uniform be uniform?
That's a good point. I gotta look into it. I don't know if they have the blue stripe on the pants, but if they do,
I mean, I thought they had they had really nailed it a couple years ago, and then they decided to tweak them all a little bit. Like they had different font on the back. I didn't like the font quite as much.
The numbers look weird.
But the red uniforms were really nice.
Mm-hmm.
They nailed those. Those were sweet. When they were the red with the white pants, that's a good third look, to be sure. Did they ever wear like copper helmets? Like way back in the day?
Yeah, 2012.
Yeah, okay. Did you like those?
No, just because they wore them to celebrate the 100-year anniversary of Arizona becoming a state.
Okay.
And then I went to Cienega High School, and our helmets looked just like that. The copper helmets that they wore, and honestly, like I was watching the game, and I'm like, those are Cienega helmets just with a block A on it, like to a T. I think they could have done a better job with it. ASU, they kind of stole their swagger a little bit. They saw Arizona doing the copper look, and they're like, all right, we're going to one up you. And the copper looks that ASU has put out have been incredible. But there's something.
It kind of fits their color scheme
yeah,
more easily.
What about turquoise, which is a state gem? Could you add turquoise to the mix?
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. They're, like the original colors, if I'm not mistaken, are sage and silver.
Yes.
Right? Now, if you like really want to get crazy,
silver
and do
you wrote
sage
about this.
And silver.
You wrote about this.
Oh, I've written about I saw the silvery helmets. I thought would look cool with
like the Cowboys
with the block A, like a silver helmet if you're doing the like for military theme. That kind of evokes that America's team idea. I thought those would be cool. I'm open to most like kind of new and different uniform concepts as long as you don't overdo it. You know, like kind of once a year, have that third or fourth uniform look. I don't really necessarily like Oregon having a different uniform every single week. That's a bit much.
Yeah. And it's like navy blue. They have navy blue uniforms. Is this supposed to look like their state flag? I don't know. But they had
I actually liked I know this is an unpopular opinion, but when they wore those black uniforms with the pink,
Yeah, I love those.
back in the day, there was Oregon ones, which they're not their colors at all, but I thought they looked really good.
I do too.
I'm pretty sure Arizona beat them too when they were wearing the black with the pink.
Scooby Wright
That one of
on
the
the
Scooby
road.
games, yeah.
Scooby Strip, who's killing it in the U.S. or what is it?
The
The UFL.
UFL.
The UFL.
Is he doing well?
The Stallions are. Him and
Yeah.
Lorenzo Burns are killing it for the Stallions. And
Good for them.
They're
good for them.
Their team. I mean, they won the championship last year, but they might go back to back. So, Scooby Wright, UFL Hall of Famer. All right, that is it for all of our questions. There's plenty to talk about regarding Arizona football. We'll do so on our next podcast. We got NFL draft coming up. Jordan Morgan going to become the first offensive lineman selected since Eben Britton.
I'm gonna do a little programming for us here on the air, Justin. Do you want to do a draft preview next week?
Oh yeah.
All right, let's do it.
That's our tradition.
Yeah,
that's our tradition.
Let's do it for the people.
All right, so
lots of Arizona and Pac-12 or former Pac-12 prospects to talk about.
Who's going number 1 overall?
I think we know.
I think we know. Yeah.
I think we know. Yeah.
It's that guy from USC. All right, we'll talk more NFL draft next week. Take a look at where Jordan Morgan is going to land, Jacob Cowling, Tanner McLaughlin, Michael Wiley, and all those guys. Plus, you got Arizona Wildcats spring sports on full swing. Arizona baseball, despite losing to GCU earlier this week, they're on a tear right now. And hey, losing to GCU means that their conference record doesn't get dinged up. So still the top team in the Pac-12. Is that correct, Lev?
They're right there. They're in a great position to for a top 3 finish if they can replicate what they did in the first half or come close to it. And you want to get in that top 3 for the Pac-12 tournament because it greatly increases the chances that you'll advance past the round robin stage.
Yep. Arizona baseball, Arizona softball, and then heck, even professional sports. You have the Tucson Roadrunners potentially playing their last home games in Tucson, Arizona.
In the playoffs.
In the playoffs too. So
yes, the Calder Cup playoffs.
Lots of activity in the Tucson sports scene. We got all of you guys covered on Tucson.com and the Wildcast app. Thank you guys once again for watching and listening. Also, don't forget to download the Wildcaster mobile app wherever you get your apps and also the Wildcast podcast.